Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Lauren Izzo, and coming up in this edition, Israel unveils the Iron Sting, a new precision missile that will help protect civilians from warfare. Elections are just 9 days away, and a right-wing coalition could be in the cards. We'll break down the Religious Zionist Party and some of their controversial policies. And the Bank of the Future. For the first time in nearly 70 years, Israel is opening a new bank, and this time based on artificial intelligence. Israel's R number, the number of people a person sick with COVID infects, according to Israel's military intelligence, has dropped to 0.78, a 5-month low, a sign that Israel's vaccine campaign is working. The health ministry is also reportedly considering canceling the requirement for Israelis to wear masks outdoors, as the CDC has recently recommended. Israel's infection numbers are showing encouraging trends, and more than 4 million people have received both jabs of the Pfizer vaccine. More than 5 million have received a first dose. On Sunday, the health ministry recording 1,339 new cases, with 627 in serious condition and 212 on ventilators. More than 6,000 Israelis have been killed by COVID. Well, Prime Minister Netanyahu allegedly tried to stop all flights from Jordan from entering Israel, according to Israeli media. The escalation follows last week's clash when Jordan blocked Netanyahu from crossing its airspace on the way to the UAE, forcing him to cancel his flight over a Temple Mount disagreement. Transportation Minister Miri Regev approved Netanyahu's demand and apparently gave the relevant bodies only 45 minutes to inform their Jordanian counterparts about the change. Meanwhile, Netanyahu saying that the flight was canceled altogether, not because of Jordan, but because of Saudi Arabia, because of the threat of missile fire from Iranian proxies in Yemen. Another Israeli flight was blocked from Saudi airspace as well, this time the cast and crew for the reality TV show Survivor on their way to Dubai. Saudi Arabia began allowing Israel to use its airspace last year when Israel signed normalization deals with the UAE and Bahrain. The Foreign Ministry and the Civil Aviation Authorities said they were dealing with this, quote, sensitive and complex matter and were waiting for an answer from Saudi Arabia. It seems that since the Biden administration took over the White House, Israel's seemingly warming ties with the Arab world may be starting to unravel. Was this new Middle East held together by Donald Trump? Let's find out from the experts. Dan Pfefferman joins us now. Thank you, Dan, for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Look, there's a lot of moving parts here. So, I mean, it's a difficult issue to gauge. It's a difficult question to answer. But I think, there's a lot of talk that we're on the verge of, let's say, some kind of relations with Saudi Arabia. And I think that's an exaggeration. But there certainly, we can say the momentum has been slowed, maybe not stopped, but slowed. The Biden administration certainly hasn't hinted in any clear way that it's not going to support the Abraham Accords. And it seems to be open to the messaging from both Jerusalem and from Gulf capitals that this is a positive, game-changing development that they should support. However, the one thing that the Trump administration seemed to understand and seemed to be doing was that it was putting a lot of energy and a lot of political capital into the Abraham Accords, into these relationships. So if we're talking about the willingness to, let's say, sweeten the deal with F-35s for the UAE, taking Sudan out of the terror sponsor list, recognizing Moroccan control of Western Sahara, those were bold uses, maybe gambles of political capital that help push these agreements together. And they help these countries who, at the end of the day, also have to contend with domestic and regional legitimacy for these kind of moves that they're trying to do in normalizing ties with Israel. And as more and more countries sign on, that's an easier thing to do. The UAE was really the first country that took the plunge. It's really hard to see the Biden administration going to such lengths to push additional countries to join. There also seems to be kind of maybe we could call it maybe a short-sighted placing of priority by the Biden administration on the JCPOA, okay? And as they like to say it, putting the Iran nuclear program in a box at the top of the Middle East agenda, whereas you could say maybe the Trump administration had a bit of a longer play, and that was getting more and more countries to sign on to the Abraham Accords, and in that way isolating Iran and isolating some of the radical actors.
With that said, Biden and Netanyahu clearly have a very different relationship than Netanyahu and Trump. After his first 2 months in office, how can we compare and contrast the policies of the Biden administration compared to what we saw from Trump for the last 4 years?
Sure. And I think it's an interesting comparison, even if we throw in the previous Obama administration, recalling that Biden was a very active vice president on foreign policy matters for Obama. And a lot of people were expecting an Obama administration part two, so to speak. We see two key differences from both of his predecessors. If we're comparing him to Obama, for example, we see Biden and his administration are a lot more willing to take bold measures. A lot of people accused or criticized Obama, for example, for not standing up, maybe appeasing Iran in a lot of ways, drawing red lines as far as Syria and Iran's involvement in Syria, and they're not willing to back those up. And here we see Biden's first Middle East move was striking back against Iranian proxies in Syria. So that's a clear, calculated, but a very clear message to Iran that the United States will not be pushed around in the Middle East. On the other hand, you saw bold moves by the Trump administration, such as pulling out of the JCPOA, bringing back maximal pressure, and the assassination of Soleimani, a top Iranian general, who was in Iraq at the time. Those were bold moves. Those were aggressive moves. But what was the point? There didn't seem to be any kind of overarching strategic narrative that they were trying to advance or any kind of exit strategy. So on the one hand, you saw a lack of determination and willingness to push back against Iranian aggression with Obama. And on the other hand, you saw a willingness to push Iran, but without any kind of point to where the United States was headed. And it seems in this case, you're seeing kind of a careful middle approach by Biden, willing to use pressure, willing to use force when necessary, but being careful in not escalating needlessly and making sure there's a point to it. On the Iran agreement, for example, we are seeing that they're trying to get Iran to come to the table to re-enter the JCPOA, but with not accepting Iran's demands. So that's a concern that a lot of us here in Israel and in other parts of the Middle East had.
So we have quite different policies coming from the two administrations, but both quite bold, is what you're saying.
Bolder than we would have expected, and more calculating than we had.
Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.
Pleasure.
A new mortar system is providing the Israeli army with next-level precision and eliminating risks of harming nearby civilians. The Defense Ministry revealing this week its complement of a new guided mortar system called the Iron Sting. Using both innovation GPS and laser technology, this formidable weapon adds a whole new level of precision to the IDF. It accurately targets enemies embedded in crowded urban environments. This while Defense Minister Benny Gantz touting that the new technology will forever change the battlefield with this new weapon. Israel is showing its strong commitment to taking sufficient precautions in distinguishing between militants and civilians. Well, is Israel headed full force toward a fifth election? As part of our Elections 2021 coverage, today we will break down the far-right end of the political spectrum, the Religious Zionist Alliance. Their new joint list could save them some seats in the Knesset and from falling below the electoral threshold. Well, if Netanyahu has anything to say.
Israel's Zionist far-right parties are joining forces to try and help form a right-wing coalition government. Noam and Otzma Yehudit will run under Bezalel Smotrich's Religious Zionist Party. First, let's break down the policies of the party alliance. The Religious Zionism Party is against territorial concessions. Some members support the annexation of the entire West Bank, though the official policy of the Jewish Home Parliamentary faction, of which it is part, supports only annexation of the Area C of the West Bank. The party is also opposed to recognition of same-sex couples on a religious basis. They have also come under fire for being racist against Arabs and suggesting they support the policies of Hitler. In 2019, far-right MK Bezalel Smotrich took over party leadership, which was called Tkuma at the time, and decided to run in the elections with the Yamina Party. Prior to the 2021 election, he renamed the party the Religious Zionism Party and announced it would run on its own and focus on uniting religious Zionism. and chiefly to be the ideological right-wing voice in the Knesset. But a day before final electoral slates were due to be presented, the far-right Religious Zionism and Otzma Yehudit parties announced that they had signed a merger agreement and were intending to run together in the upcoming election. The alliance also including the anti-LGBT Noam party. The merger, agreed upon by Religious Zionism party leaders Smotrich and Otzma Yehudit chair Ben Gvir, was reportedly brokered by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu himself in an effort to prevent either or both of the satellite parties from failing to pass the electoral threshold and wasting right-wing votes. But when Ben Gvir and Smotrich joined forces, they said it was only a technical block and that they would split up after the March 23 election. The Prime Minister likely needs their seats for a majority coalition if Likud wins the election. If the parties pass the 3.25% Knesset threshold, the Prime Minister's Likud would likely make an alliance with them in order to secure a majority coalition, again creating a right-wing government.
Well, if Israel's election was held today, Likud would receive 28 seats, one fewer than the Channel's poll conducted last week, that is from Channel 13. And the Religious Zionism party would secure 6 seats, gaining 1 seat at the Likud's expense. With that said, the landscape of the left and the right-wing blocs remains unchanged. The anti-Netanyahu bloc would receive 58 seats, and the pro-Netanyahu bloc would receive just 47. Well, with just a week to go until the election, things are heating up both in the parliament and on the street. A Knesset candidate for the New Hope Party was violently confronted by activists from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party as he campaigned in Jerusalem on Sunday. Just 9 days before the election, Netanyahu looking as calm as ever and even had enough time to attend a soccer game, but still taking every opportunity to promote his plans for a right-wing government, without Yair Lapid, his biggest challenger from the other side of the political map.
אז אני מתחייב שאני אקים ממשלת ימין רחבה, בלי רוטציה ובטח בלי יאיר לפיד בממשלה.
While a lot remains up in the air, one thing is for sure, ILTV will be bringing you special live coverage of all the breaking news on election night with Aaron Porras and Lidar Grave-Lazi, who is joining us now to give us a sneak peek into what we have planned for you. Hey, Lidar.
Hey, Lauren, we're all gearing up for the election set to take place next week. The political parties are in full swing, although a lot can happen in 1 week. I'm sure it's going to be very exciting, and as always with Israeli elections, full of last-minute intrigues and surprises. And we are continually following all the political players to bring our viewers the latest news all the way up to Elections Night, where I, together with Aaron Porras, will be hosting a live Elections Night broadcast, where we'll be reporting on all the updates as they happen live. We'll have a panel of leading Israeli experts in the studio. We'll talk to Israelis on the street about who they're voting for and what the most important issues are to them for this election cycle. So I hope all our viewers will tune in on March 23rd at 10 p.m. Israel time.
Thank you, Lidar. We are all looking forward to it.
Thanks, Lauren.
Well, moving on now, you may have attended a bar or bat mitzvah, but I bet you've never attended a black mitzvah. Comedian Tiffany Haddish won the Grammy for the Best Comedy Album for her Netflix comedy special, which also celebrated her Jewish heritage. Beating out fellow Jewish comedian Jerry Seinfeld, who was nominated for 23 Hours to Kill, Haddish became only the 6th woman and 2nd black woman to win the award.
Tonight is a celebration. I have finally come into my full-grown womanhood. It's my mitzvah. I'm here to teach.
Haddish celebrated her black mitzvah in 2019, surrounded by an array of Jewish celebrity friends, including Billy Crystal, Chelsea Handler, and Sarah Silverman. Haddish became interested in her Jewish heritage after meeting her father, an Eritrean Jew, for the first time at age 27. She had previously worked as a performer at bar and bat mitzvahs, but hadn't known much about that part of her identity. Congratulations, Mazal Tov to you. Well, it's time to bring banking into the 21st century. First Digital Bank, Israel's first new banking institution in 43 years, aims to use artificial intelligence and other technology to create a personal ambiance without the actual human contact that comes with neighborhood branches. The bank will initially operate on a pilot basis with a limited clientele and eventually expand to serve the general public at the end of the year. But those interested can already sign up for the waiting list. Now let's speak to Vili Abraham, a consumer behavior and economy expert. Thank you, Vili, for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
So how does artificial intelligence play into the banking system? How is this new system going to work?
All right, well, it has a major role as far as security is concerned, because today hacking is a serious problem, especially now in the Corona era where people are using digital services and it's become so prevalent. But if we're looking at the banking system, it provides several major advantages. So first of all, it will be more trustworthy. It will be able to detect anomalies in streams of financial data. It will be more efficient by being able to forecast demand and provide services in real time. These are the three major advantages of artificial intelligence in the banking system.
So from a logistical standpoint, how is this specific bank going to work? Are there going to be branches that are sort of computerized without actual bank tellers? Is everything going to be online through a phone app? How will people actually be able to access their funds?
All right, so first of all, people will be able to access their bank account via an app. There will not be any physical banks. That's the whole advantage. And it will decrease significantly the interest that we Israelis are paying because of really lack of competition. So this will hopefully open the Israeli market to competition. It will be a bank like we're used to, just with a lot of benefits. You'll be able to take loans, deposit money. You'll be able to get a credit card associated with your account. Eventually, you'll be able even to take a mortgage. You'll be able to get foreign exchange services. So everything we're used to getting to, but from our homes, and no need to go out and wait online. And, you know, there are a lot of disadvantages to going to a physical branch, and this is something we'll be able to benefit from. And by the way, they'll be offering 24-hour customer service. You'll be able to call and talk to a banker anytime.
Of course, we have to think about the security factor in this, but in general, it might be quite daunting for people to deal with their finances without actually going through a human being. Is this the future? Are all banks going to be like this in the near future? What do you think?
Well, I think so. If you look at what is happening in the United States, there are a lot of digital banks in the United States. If you look at across Europe, it's becoming ever more popular. As far as revenues are concerned, by 2026, digital banks are expected to rake in about $1.7 billion. It only shows how popular it's becoming and how it is becoming more, people are more receptive to digital banking. I think that once Israelis understand how much they can benefit regarding the interest rates that we're paying now, we're paying very high interest rates, especially if you are, a private individual, not a business owner. And I think that this is something that will enable us to save a lot of money. And once we understand that and see that, we realize that it's easy to do and there are no security concerns, we'll be more receptive.
Well, most of us might have to wait until the end of the year to find out. Vili Abraham, thank you so much for being with us today.
It was a pleasure.
Well, the fear of missing out, or FOMO, can lead to actual physical pain, according to Israeli researchers. They focus specifically on FOMO as manifested by cell phone fixation, or fear of missing messages, posts, or notifications. The researchers found a direct correlation between device dependency and two markers of stress and anxiety: teeth grinding and jaw pain. People who are less attached to their phones also sleep better with less interrupted shut-eye. Pesia Friedman-Rubin is from the Tel Aviv University Dental School, and she was a part of the research. We are so lucky to be joined by her now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, Professor, how are fear of missing out, FOMO, and dental health connected?
So today in 2021, people need to be updated all the time what happened in the social media. We actually living by our phone. We have to check all the time what happened, and if somebody wrote something on the social media, and if I want to be updated, I want to be on the loop. That's why people are more stressed and more obsessed about their phone. And it's making a circle of growing dependency on our cell phones that can lead to waking up at night, checking on the phone, overuse of the cell phone, and then we tired in the day, sleeping problem at night. We have a problem of grinding our teeth and clenching our teeth. And then we have pains in the muscle of the jaws and damages to the joint.
And obviously during the pandemic, everybody has become a lot more attached to technology, to their smartphones specifically. Have these side effects increased during the pandemic?
Yeah, we saw that during the pandemic, everybody is much more stressed, checking their phone much more. And people are coming with their teeth broken and their teeth grinding. And much more painful in the jaw and muscles. We see that people are much more dependent on their cell phone, and they have to check it like all the time because all the cellular life are become like our real life. We can't go out and interact people otherwise.
So how can we tackle this really frightening problem? I mean, is the answer, to get rid of smartphones? What is the underlying solution here? Is there one at all?
Of course, we are not against a smartphone and the possibility of being available all the time, but people have to set limits. People have to know how much they use and to be aware that there are physical and mental damages that can be affected. And the smartphone is not smarter than us. We have to be smart and to be aware how much we use it.
Okay, Professor, thank you for highlighting an important issue. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
While most Israelis remained confined in their homes during the COVID outbreak, Israeli photographer Eitan Asraf toured the country to capture surreal photographs, but not the kind you might expect. Take a look at this special report from Alyssa Hugel.
Eitan Asraf's photos are anything but ordinary. Captured on his smartphone, Asraf attributes his unique style to his near-death experience. In 2016, Asraf's paraglider crashed into a wastewater reservoir. After nearly 2 hours and 45 minutes of fighting for his life, Asraf was rescued and immediately airlifted to the nearest hospital, where he suffered from organ failure and electric shocks.
From this point, I start to look at things differently. The biggest influence was on my art.
Asraf's stunning images celebrate life and provide viewers with an unusual perspective. And the coronavirus period has only heightened his unique style. Touring the country, Asraf's photos capture this novel period in the world.
הקורונה תקופה מאוד מאתגרת. הכניסה אותי למוד של עשייה מסביב לשעון. באמת מסביב לשעון לתעד פרויקטים בכל רחבי ישראל. כמובן אפשר לצאת למקומות נוספים בעולם. הכניס אותי למוד הזה בידיעה שהתקופה המאתגרת והמטורפת הזאת תסופר כאן לדורות.
If you want to see Asraf's surreal cell phone snaps, his Instagram and Facebook are open to all.
Now that is a positive way to use your smartphone. Okay, let's take a look at the weather forecast with Chana Rifkin.
Hi, Lauren. So Israel's calling for partly cloudy and clear skies throughout the country tonight and tomorrow, save for the Haifa area, which may get some showers. Lows tonight expecting to range from the upper 40s to the mid-50s, or between 8 to 13 degrees Celsius. Highs tomorrow expecting to range from the mid to upper 60s, lower 70s in the south, or between 18 to 22 degrees Celsius. Back to the studio now.
And thank you for that, Chana. Now, just before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel. Well, I hope at least they're landing on a very, very soft surface. I hope it's a bed or something. To be honest with you, my brother-in-law used to do that to my nephew all the time, and it really, really, really scared me. But it looks like those guys are having fun. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.32 shekels to the American dollar and 2.65 shekels to the Canadian dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to visit the all-new and improved ILTV website at iltv.tv and subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates while you're there. I'm Lauren Izzo. Thank you for watching.